Can you see it? Haribo?
Yes, yeah, we can see it, Maharaj.
Good. All right, so we've stopped at chapter 7. I mean, we stopped at the end of chapter 6. And this was the Karma Yoga part, Bhagavad Gita. And next 6 chapters are dedicated to Bhakti Yoga. So we'll start by a little bit of Kirtan, glorifying Srila Prabhupada and the Supreme Lord. Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Pristaya Bhutale Srimade Bhakti Vedanta Swaminiti Namine.
Namo Vishnu Pradaya Krishna Prasthaya
Bhutale
Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Swami
Nidamine
Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shanavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Namaste
Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Sunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine.
Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadha Shivasadi Gaurabhakta Vrinda. Jaya Shri
Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Advaita Gadadhara Shivasadi Gaurabhakta Vrinda.
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna Krishna
Krishna, Krishna,
Hare
Hare
Hare Rama Hare Rama
Rama, Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna,
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare,
Hare Rama Hare Rama
Rama
Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare.
Hare
Hare
Rama Hare
Rama,
Rama Rama
Rama, Hare Hare.
Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari
Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari.
Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari.
Radha Madhava
Kunja Bihari.
Gopi Dana Vallabha Giridhari. Gopi Dana Jaya Gopi Dana Vallabha Giridhari.
Jaya Gopi Girivaradhari.
Yashodanandana Braja Janaranjana.
Yashodanandana Braja Janaranjana
Yashodanandana Braja Janaranjana.
Yashodanandana Braja Janaranjana.
Yamuna Tira Vanachare.
Yamuna Tira Vanachari.
Yamuna Tira Vanachare.
Yamuna Tira Vanachari.
Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari.
Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari.
Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari.
Jaya
Radha
Radha
Madhava
Kunja Bihari.
Jaya Radha Gokulananda Radha Gokulananda Radhe.
Jaya Radha Gokulananda Radha Gokulananda Radhe
Jaya Radha Landaneshwar Radha Landaneshwar Radhe.
Jaya Radha Nandaneshwara Nandaneshwara Radhe
Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada.
Jaya Prabhupada Prabhupada Srila Prabhupada
Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Nitai Gora Hari Bol.
Jai Gora Hari Bol Hari Bol Jai Gora Hari Bol
Hare Krishna, Shri Harinam Sankirtan Yagya ki Jai, Srimad Bhagavad Gita ki Jai,
Jai
Srila Prabhupada ki Jai,
Jai
ISKCON Guru Vrinda ki Jai, Samaveta Bhakta Vrinda ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. Jai Gaur Premanande. Om Agyantimirandasya Gyananjana Shalokaya Chaksharan Militam Yana Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manovistam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadam Mayam Dadati Swaparantikam Manchaka Patrubhyascha Kripa Sindhubevacha Patitanam Pavanepyo Vaishnavepyo Namo Namaha. Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaur Bhakta Brinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Tay Mahat Prema Puro Vibhur Nirmay Kshati Adamush Purusha Bhunte Gunan Sada Sada Satmakapela Krishna Mangaman Bacham Sime Hare Krishna. So we should continue with our topic, Bhagavad Gita overview. Normally I call it crash course, but we have it over 3 classes going through the whole Bhagavad Gita. So hopefully what we've done night before yesterday made some sense and help you to learn something new. And yeah, it's very surprising that we never did this course in South London because I've done this all over the world. And so we will start with chapter 7, which is Vijnana Yoga. So let's start with introductory invocational mantra. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Just wanted to check again if anyone in here ever attended this crash course. If you can maybe say or wave your hand. Well, nobody. That's very impressive. Okay. All right. So chapter 7 is called Vijnana Yoga. And as we understand, Vijnana is different from just Jnana, because the fourth chapter, which was Jnana Yoga, if you remember, was referring to understanding of how do we perform our karma, which is also our dharma, under the regulations of the Shastra. So it was Jnana mostly referring to our position and our activities towards the Supreme Lord. But now Vijnana, B means specific, so it is very specific knowledge about the position of the Supreme Lord himself. And the very first verse of the 7th chapter, and it's good for you to kind of have Bhagavad Gita at your disposal next to you to check it out. The very first verse of the 7th chapter, because it's an introductory verse to the entire section of Bhakti Yoga. Just on this verse alone, Srila Prabhupada gave more than 20 classes, something like 23, 24 classes, not just mentioning, but elaborating this verse alone, because it's such an important verse. And we know that there are 9 processes in Bhakti Yoga, as Prahlad Maharaj explains. And what is the first and foremost process? That is, of course, Shravanam. And what is the very first verse of Vijnana Yoga chapter 7 says? Shri Bhagavan Vacha Maya Sakta Mahapartha Yogam Yunjan Madashraya Asamshayam Samagram Mam Yatha Gyasasitat Shrinu. The Supreme Personality of God had said, now here, O son of Pritha, how by practicing yoga in full consciousness of me with mind attached to me, you can know me in full, free from doubt. So, Tat Shrinu, Krishna is emphasizing hearing. And Srila Prabhupada explains in the purport that we should hear from Krishna or his bona fide representative, and that hearing will help us to advance in Krishna consciousness. And what should we hear about? Did Krishna started with his pastimes in Vrindavan, Rasa Leela? No, not even his childhood pastimes. What did he start with? He started explaining how he is manifested in this world. And this is something largely related to what he said in the previous chapter, 6. Text 30 says, Yamam pashyati sarvatra sarvam chamaya pashyati sajam na pranashami sachamena pranashati. That one who is seeing me everywhere and everything in me will never lose me and will never be lost to me. So that ability to see Krishna everywhere is really important. Just this morning, during the Bhagavad class, we discussed that kind of balance between our effort and Krishna's will, because sometimes we might think, say, if something is meant to happen to me or to somebody else, why should I make any effort? Because if Krishna wants it, it will happen. But if Krishna will not want it, no matter how much effort I will make, it will not happen anyway. But this is very immature neophyte perception, because I mean, even if I explain Bhagavad Gita here, you still have to make effort to connect and be online. So some effort is still required. And we can see that in Damodar Lila. First, Mother Yashoda was making a lot of effort. And then Krishna gave her his mercy. So I'm using the formula of, if we do our best, then Krishna can do the rest. But if we're not making any effort, Krishna will not really give us any mercy. Why? Not that our effort is producing mercy. Rather, our effort does not guarantee the results. But Krishna can judge our sincerity by the effort. And so this is very important. That's why it's really, it is mature Krishna conscious understanding that not just Krishna and me and that's it. That's pretty egotistic, right? Me and Krishna, nobody else and nothing else matters. As if I'm like in the position of the chosen devotee of Krishna who is the closest to Krishna. No, we need to understand how everything and everyone is connected to Krishna, right? It's like that story about a man who was trying to protect himself from flood in his village, and he was on the roof, and he was praying to Krishna to please protect him. As soon as he made prayer, then the boat was rowing by, and people on the boat, they said, jump in. But the man said, no, I actually prayed to the Supreme Lord to save me, so I don't need your boat. I'm waiting for the Supreme Lord to save me. So people didn't want to wait for too long, so they went ahead. Then the water was still rising, and he started praying again, please, my Lord, protect me. So then the helicopter is flying by, and people from helicopter, they shouted, get into helicopter, we'll save you. But the man again says, no, I prayed to the Supreme Lord, and I'm waiting for him to save me. And so then helicopter left, and the water rose, and the man drowned. But because he drowned, thinking of Krishna, he went to Krishna, which was good. But then upon seeing Krishna, this was his first question. Krishna, I was not like planning to leave my body yet. I was praying for you to help me, to save me. So what happened? Why didn't you save me? And Krishna said, that's really confusing because I sent you the boat, I sent you the helicopter, you refused twice. So I came to a conclusion, you are not interested. Then I saved you from material life altogether. So it really depends on our desire, what we really want. And so our desire, our effort should be an indication of our desire. And if we make no effort, we cannot expect Krishna's mercy. And so, therefore, the most important thing for us, at least in this context, is to understand how everyone and everything is connected to Krishna. So this is really powerful chapter because it speaks about both material and spiritual energies, how they interact. And so, first of all, it says how rare the one who strives for spiritual perfection. 7.3 says, out of many thousands among men, one may endeavor for perfection, and of those who have achieved perfection, hardly one knows me in truth. So this verse helps us to understand how rare devotees are, and therefore devotees should be appreciated. And then in the next text 4, Krishna explains that he has 8 material energies. So these are earth, water, fire, air, ether, mind, intelligence, and false ego. Altogether, these 8 constitute my separated material energies. But then in the next verse, he speaks about superior energy, spiritual energy, or the soul. Apariyamatas tvanyam prakriti vidhime param jiva bhuta mahabaho yadam dharete jagat. He says that besides this, Almighty Arjuna, there is another superior energy of mind which comprises living entities who are exploiting the resources of this material inferior nature. And so we can understand that this is the cause of the trouble we are undergoing right now. And the cause is very simple. Because, of course, material world is Krishna's property, and as Prabhupada said, every living entity, being child of Krishna, has the right to enjoy Father's property, but it's for everyone's need, but not for everyone's greed. But because so many powerful people at the moment are greed-driven in this world, and greed and pride, basically speaking. Yeah, pride is a very big thing, that they think they can dominate material nature. And it's very interesting, right? Well, today I've read a Forbes article which gives the positive sides of the pandemic, and one positive side, the biggest positive side, is everyone have to develop modesty now, right? Everyone will have to become humble or humiliated, and probably we won't have much wealth after this is over. Everyone will have to become poor. But there are benefits of poverty, actually. What is that? Prabhupada explains that in the Krishna book, Deliverance of Nalakuvar and Manigriv. He speaks about so many benefits of poverty, that people become humble, simple, respectful, appreciative of sadhus, unlike wealthy people. And so seems like the entire world will be plunged into poverty very soon. And then everyone will have to become very modest and very humble. And so there are many, many benefits, including, of course, hygiene standards. It's so funny that something we could not encourage people to do in more than 50 years of broadcasting Krishna conscious understanding, in very few weeks, the entire world, in accelerating way, they learn of these things by force, not by choice. So, but yeah, somehow this is the reality of this situation. And of course, exploitation of the resources of this world, primarily meat eating, is really bad type of exploitation. And a good news is that meat eating, especially beef eating industry, gets destroyed right now very, very fast. Why? Because it's considered to be luxury industry, and right now nobody's focused on luxuries. Everyone's focused on survival. So meat industry suffers tremendous losses, and well, governments still try to bail it out, but they won't have much resources for long. It's going to be destroyed because coronavirus will not stop too soon. So we can see that Krishna has his wonderful plan in action, and we should be happy that the world is changing very, very rapidly right now, every single day. I mean, a day is like a month at least, or even a year. Like the kind of realizations people are getting in one day would be equal to realizations they're getting at least in 1 year in normal circumstances. So, and they're learning by force that they cannot live like that any longer, and they have to change their lifestyles. And so then text 6 is explaining that all of us are combinations of material and spiritual energy. We have this material body, gross and subtle, but we are spirit soul inside of it. So that's our position. And now Krishna elaborates on what he said before. So it's very similar to the rest of the structure of Bhagavad Gita, as we were mentioning. Chapter 2, Krishna gives short contents, but then he elaborates starting from chapter 3. And you can see that this chapter is following the same pattern. Now Krishna is elaborating how he is manifested through different material elements. And so in text 8, he says, O son of Kunti, I am the taste of water, the light of the sun and the moon, the syllable Om in the Vedic mantras, I am the sound in ether and ability in man. So I'm the original fragrance of the earth, and I'm the heat in fire. I am the life of all that lives, and I am the penance of all ascetics. And so he continues describing different energies and how he's manifested through these energies. And he even says, know that all states of being, be they of goodness, passion, or ignorance, are manifested by my energy. I'm, in one sense, everything, but I am independent. I'm not under the modes of material nature, for they, on the contrary, are within me. So it's very interesting. Even the manifestation of the lowest modes of nature, it's still Krishna. And chapter 10 will be giving more examples of how Krishna manifests himself, for example, through gambling or cheating, things like that. It's also Krishna. And so we can understand that Krishna is everything. Krishna is all around us, because even though we don't see him, but still he's present next to us through his material energy. You know, it's like Krishna is too big, right? Krishna is unlimitedly big, and we are infinitesimal. He's infinite, we are infinitesimal. And that's why some funny people were saying, if God is there, can you show me God? It's such a ridiculous statement. I mean, it's more ridiculous than the bacteria within our body, hopefully not the virus, wants to see the man. So being inside the human being, how can you see the human being? So our position is even more insignificant than the position of some bacteria within our body. But still, we are so proud that we think, let me see God. Okay, we can. God is straight before us. He's on the left, on the right, on the top, on the bottom, at the back. He's everywhere. He's in all directions. But unfortunately, our eyes are not good enough to see the Supreme Lord. And that's why Krishna has to explain himself, who he is, his real position in Bhagavad Gita. And he speaks about the importance of surrendering unto him. He says material energy is very difficult to overcome because it's divine. And it's only when one surrenders unto me, he can easily cross beyond it. So all our troubles are only because of our rebellion of Krishna. If we surrender unto Krishna, then there are no troubles, because this is the lesson Maya is teaching us. We're not God. And this situation is definitely, because even in that Forbes article, and it's amazing how deep people's realizations are on the subject of the pandemic, that being modest also means to realize I'm not in control. I'm just insignificant living entity in this material world. But if I surrender unto the Supreme Lord, then I can easily cross beyond the influence of this material energy. And so then he explains 4 types of people who do not want to surrender to Krishna. And these are Namam Dushkritino Mudha Prapadante Naradhama Mayaparita Jnanam Asuram Bhavamashritaha. So these are foolish people, mudhas, those who just want to work hard, work, As we know, Krishna consciousness is meant to be still living high thinking, and my Guru Maharaj's material life means very complicated lives with no time to think. But now everyone has time to think. Now Krishna gave everyone so much mercy. But yeah, even mudhas have to sit at and yeah, I'm not sure how much they take advantage of it for their spiritual advancement, but if they won't, they'll just continue suffering in this world. So this is the first category. Foolish people. They're compared to asses, hardworking asses. And then Naradhama, lowest among mankind, those who actually have knowledge but consciously chose to go against God. And Mayoparita Jnana, those whose knowledge is stolen by illusion, and Asurim Bhavam Ashrita, those who have demoniac natures. And then in the next verse, he explains 4 types of pious people who are consciously surrendering to Krishna. And so congratulations, you're all in this category, one of those 4 categories. Chaturvidha bhajantimam jana sukritajana arto jigyasarartati jnani chabartarshaba, that there are 4 types of people, pious people, sukritino, who surrender unto me. And first one is Artha. Artha means those who are distressed, those who have problem. Second one is Jigyasu, the inquisitive. Artharthi, those who desire material gain, and Jnani, those who search for knowledge. And then Krishna explains that of all these, the best one is one who serves me in full knowledge. And so he says this is very rare, because knowledge means Brahmana, Brahminical nature, and so Brahmanas are always rare species amongst human beings. Mostly people are Shudras. Among Shudras, there are very few Vaishyas. Among Vaishyas, there are very few Kshatriyas. And comparing to number of Kshatriyas, Brahmanas are still even less. And so then Krishna explains that not everyone wants to worship him. Many people, they want to worship demigods, but even though this is not the right type of worship, Krishna still is encouraging those who want to worship demigods, because even though they have material desires, these people, this is why they want to worship demigods. Like some people say it's really dangerous to worship Krishna, because when he blows his flute, he can blow all the money away. So that's why in India, some people worship Krishna without flute. Of course, this is very foolish understanding, as if that will make any difference. So Mare Krishna Rake Krishna Marike, that if Krishna planning something in our lives, no one can change it. But yeah, this is a foolish understanding of people. They think that they can manipulate Krishna one way or the other, because they don't know that Krishna is the Supreme Lord and no one can ever manipulate him. So and they think they can manipulate demigods. So it's very low level of spiritual understanding. You worship some superior personality, but you are hoping to manipulate that personality. Yeah, we're still showing the chapter 7 slide. Actually, yeah, we're taking a little bit longer today because we have more time. So yeah, this is the idea behind chapter 7, that all elements are connected to Krishna, and all elements are meant to be utilized in his service. So this is what happening. Prabhupada wanted this temple of Vedic planetarium because he wanted the whole world to understand how Krishna is connected to his energies, that Krishna is not just mythological figure. Okay, so we can spend a little more time on chapter 7 if you want. So Krishna says less intelligent people worshipping demigods for their material desires, but then unintelligent people, they just think that Krishna is impersonal. So they just, and yeah, it's very interesting because they are really studying knowledge. These are jnanis. They study, trying to understand Krishna, but Krishna calls them unintelligent. So because knowledge is less important than activity. So at least those who are demigod worshippers, at least they do some worship. Someone who represents Krishna, at least they develop some relationship with someone. But these guys, they're just self-centered, and they, by their knowledge, they try to figure out how to control this material energy. And so, yeah, Krishna says that ever manifest to foolish and unintelligent people. For them, I'm covered by my spiritual potency, and therefore they don't know that I'm unborn and infallible. So then Krishna speaks about his position, that he knows everything, but nobody knows him. And all of us are into the world influenced by Ichha and Vesha, desire and illusion, and hate, sorry. And then he says what is the prerequisite of, and this is almost the end of the chapter now. He explains what is the prerequisite for dedicating ourselves to Krishna consciousness with determination. Yashantvantāgatam papam jananam punyakarmanam tadvandamohanir mukta vajanti mamdridavrata. People who have acted piously in previous lives and in this life, and whose sinful actions are completely eradicated, are freed from the dualities of delusion, and they engage themselves in my service with determination. So, only most pious people, as Prabhupada says, take up to Krishna consciousness. And one of Prabhupada's disciples asked him, if this is true, I cannot remember that I've done anything pious in my life before I became a devotee. So how come that I took up to this process? And Prabhupada's response was, I created your piety. And so this is not just some kind of mysterious statement. Actually, piety is coming by helping people get in touch with devotional service. So we can see Prabhupada was working on creating piety for these people. He was going out and for giving them prasadam, introducing them to his books, inviting them to his association. Gradually, they accumulated this spiritual piety. And from agyata sukriti, unconscious piety turned into gyata sukriti, conscious piety, and so they became devotees like that. And the next verse, Krishna says, intelligent people take shelter of my devotional service and their qualities become spiritual. And the last verse of this chapter, he says, those in full consciousness of me who know me, the Supreme Lord, to be the governing principle of material manifestation of the demigods and of all methods of sacrifice, can understand and know me, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, even at the time of death. So he starts speaking about death now. And therefore, next chapter, it is dedicated to death. Rather, the Sanskrit title of the chapter is called Taraka Brahma Yoga. Taraka means deliverance, Brahma means spiritual, yoga of spiritual deliverance. And Srila Prabhupada chose the title Attaining the Supreme. And so this chapter is basically speaking about death. Arjuna asked a number of questions. But starting from text 2, he's asking, how can those engaged in devotional service know you at the time of death? And so discussions about death are very important because you can see how much of Bhagavatam and Gita specifically are dedicated to the subject of death. Right? Speaking about death all the time. And for Arjuna, it was very relevant because battlefield means death is inevitable, as sure as death. And so for us also, the whole material world is a big battlefield. And now it literally is like battlefield. We can see that people die left, right, and center. Not just hundreds, but not just thousands, but thousands. Not yet tens of thousands, but few thousand every day already, like more than 2,000 every day. And it will rise. So, but it's very important to remember death because, Latin proverb is memento mori. If you remember death, you will appreciate, okay, my life is temporary, and therefore I should not waste any of it for futile attempts to control and enjoy this world. And so I need to dedicate my life fully in devotional service. And we can see a very good example here. This man who lies on Nrsingadev's lap and undergoes the first surgical operation in the of the universe, actually. And that surgery ended up very nicely because patient went back to the spiritual world. And we can see that the success of this man, even though he was not a good man, was classical demon, but he was thinking of the Supreme Lord all his life. And so yam yam bapismaran bhavam tyajatante kalevaram. So that's the thing, that whatever you think, whatever you remember at the moment of death, this is what you achieve. And so yeah, Hiranyakashipu went to Krishna's abode. I mean, not maybe immediately, because he still had to be killed 2 more times, because Krishna really loved such a powerful opponent. But yeah, ultimately he went to Krishna because he was thinking of Krishna all the time. And of course, this is a positive example of someone who was thinking of Krishna positively, Sri Prahlad Maharaj, and definitely he got his benefit. So we have these 2 models of thinking of Krishna in fear or in anger or with love and devotion. So one type is called pratikula, unfavorable, and the other one is called anukula, favorable. And so Krishna says very important thing in text 7. Tasmat sarveshu kalishu manam smarayut yachamaya pitamano buddhir. Mam evaishyasya samshayaha. Therefore, Arjuna, you should always think of me in the form of Krishna, and at the same time carry out your prescribed duty of fighting with your activities dedicated to me, and your mind and intelligence fixed on me. Without. This is very important instruction for us, because many times we want to either think of Krishna and not do anything for Krishna, or do some practical service for Krishna, but thinking of something else. But Krishna recommends that we should combine these 2 things. While we are doing something for Krishna, we should also think of him, and this what will help us to achieve perfection. All right, and he explains then later in the chapter that depending on the time and position when one leaves the body, one will either go to the spiritual world or remain in the material world. And then, of course, he explains that what is spiritual world. First time he speaks about his abode. Abramabuna loka punar artino jana mamu petya tukantaya punarjanmana vidyate. From the highest planet to the material world down to the lowest are all places of misery, wherein repeated birth and death takes place. But one who attains to my abode, O son of Krishna, never takes birth again. And then he explains how some people, they live at certain times and circumstances, and they go to the spiritual world, but other people, when they leave body at the wrong time, in wrong circumstances, they don't go to the spiritual world, but they stay in this material world. But he explains that devotee is not concerned with these things, because devotee depends on the Supreme Lord. Because, it's really hard to kind of calculate this situation, right? So this is what Krishna says in text 27, Naite Siti Parta Janaya Gimuheti Kaschana Tasmat Sarveshu Kaleshu Yoga Yukto Bhavarjuna. Although the devotees know these two paths, Arjuna, they are never bewildered, therefore be always fixed in devotion. And so, yeah, it's basically either we try to go to Krishna by our own effort, or we just leave it up to Krishna and fully focus on his service. And yeah, second is much easier, leave it up to Krishna, because we can't really force Krishna to produce any results. But if we please him by our service, we'll get best results. And the very last text of chapter 8, which is very significant. I mean, last texts are kind of conclusions, and therefore they carry important messages. And it says, Vedeshu yageshu tapasu chaiva, daneshu yad punyapalam pradishtam, atyeti tatsaramdam viditva yigiparam stanam chetyam. A person who accepts the path of devotional service is not bereft of the results derived from studying, performing the sacrifices, giving charity, or pursuing philosophical and fruitive activities. Simply by performing devotional service, he attains all these, and at the end, he reaches the supreme eternal abode. So basically, it's explained here that if you're engaged in devotional service, you don't lose anything, but you will gain whatever else you can gain by following all other paths. Yeah, because Krishna is the supreme benefactor. And so with this in mind, we can move to chapter 9. And most probably we'll have to go a little faster here. I hope it makes sense, but it's not too boring. If you have any questions, you can please type that in the chat. Yeah, I'll see if you typed something, and I don't mind stopping and answering your questions. So chapter 9 is the central chapter of Bhagavad Gita. It's called Raja Guhya Yoga. And this chapter is translated by Srila Prabhupada, or entitled by Srila Prabhupada. Actually, he used already existing titles, I think, from Dr. Radhakrishna. Yeah, that actually he said the titles are good, and even translations of most of the verses he said are good, but only the commentaries he said were not good. Otherwise, he used certain things from his book. And so it's translated as the most confidential knowledge, which is literally a direct translation from Sanskrit, because Raja means topmost, and Guhya means confidential, and yoga means connection to Krishna. And so this is central chapter of Bhagavad Gita, because the most confidential truths will be explained in this chapter. Bhagavad Gita, we haven't mentioned that, is like a jewelry box. This is the analogy given by Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, where in the lead of the box is first 6 chapters, Karma Yoga, the jewelry, that is Bhakti Yoga, and the base part is Jnana Yoga, last 6 chapters. And so actually most of the jewels are connected. in this chapter 9. So it's really amazing chapter, and we'll understand so many confidential truths about Krishna and his devotion and relationship, our relationship with him. And it's interesting how Srila Prabhupada was chanting Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari before reading Bhagavad Gita, because it's a little bit confusing that what Radharani, for example, has to do with Bhagavad Gita, right? I'm not even sure if Radharani mentioned in Mahabharata at all, maybe briefly. Haven't read full Mahabharata. But yeah, I mean, definitely Bhagavad Gita is not focused on Radha Krishna relationships, but somehow Srila Prabhupada was doing that, was chanting Jaya Radha Madhava even before reading Bhagavad Gita, because actually Radharani is there in Bhagavad Gita as well. She's glorified by Krishna, but in Guhyam, in very very indirectly, because yeah, as we understand the circumstances, the war situation and all of these were not suitable for glorifying or even saying about Radharani directly. But there is a verse in the 9th chapter wherein Krishna glorifies Radharani, and this has been explained by Srila Prabhupada at least in three or four places in his, couple of places in his books. It's mentioned in Nectar of Devotion, Nectar of Instruction, and he mentioned that in few classes as well, that this verse glorifies Radharani. And which verse is that? It is 9:13, which also glorifies great devotees, Mahatmas, Mahatmanas tumam partha, Daivi prakritim ashritaha. So this verse says that great devotees, they take shelter of my Daivi prakriti. And so Prabhupada says Daivi prakriti means Srimati Radharani. That's why, for example, in Vrindavan, everyone is chanting Jai Shri Radhe, because they understand in order to get Krishna's mercy first, we need to get Radharani's mercy. And that's why our Mahamantra starts with Hare, which refers to Radharani. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So this is a very powerful verse. Bhajantananya manaso yatva bhutani mabhyayam. Krishna says that those people who worship me, I mean, those people who take shelter of my divine energy are fully engaged in devotional service because they know me as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, original and inexhaustible. So by getting Radharani's mercy, we can actually understand Krishna without doubt. And so then in the next text, he glorifies chanting of his holy name. Specifically, he glorifies the process of kirtan. Very interesting. It kind of goes a little bit out of sequence for us, because chapter 1 was focused on Shravanam. Chapter 7 was focused on Shravanam. Then chapter 8 was focused on Smaranam, but yeah, somehow. And chapter 9 is focused on glorifying the Lord, Kirtan. And so, but this is conversation, so things might be a little bit not in the order we used to, but actually it also makes sense that if you hear, first you need to understand, and then you can glorify, right? If you just hear and repeat without understanding, without internalizing, it will not be effective, right? And so this text 14 is saying Satatam Kirtayantamam Yatantaschadri Davrata Namasyanta Chamam Bhaktya Nityakta Upasate. Krishna says, always chanting my glories, endeavoring with great determination, bowing down before me, these great souls perpetually worship me with devotion. So he explains what does it mean to be great soul, Mahatma, not just whimsically calling someone Mahatma, but these are people who follow these three things. They always glorify Krishna, they always make a lot of effort in serving him, and they are humbly bowing down before Krishna. And then after glorifying his pure devotees, he says that there are many other people who try to cultivate knowledge, worship the Supreme Lord as one without second, as diverse and many, and in the universal form. But then again, he says, I'm everything. I'm the father of the universe. I'm the ritual, the sacrifice, the offering of ancestors, the healing herb, the transcendental chant, the butter and the fire and the offering. Father of this universe, the mother, the support, grandsire, object of knowledge, purifier, and the civil home. I'm also the Rig, the Sama, and the Yajur Vedas. So he basically explains that he's everything. And he kind of mentions these things on the go, but then he comes back to them in next chapter 10. And he gives a powerful analogies. And then he explains about those people who still have material desires and they do some kind of worship, which is not exactly his pure devotional service. They advance, but their advancement is limited. But those who worship him, Krishna is taking care of these devotees personally. Very famous verse, 22. Ananyas chintayantamam yajana paripasate tesham nityabhyuktanam yogakshamam baham yaham. Krishna says, but those who always worship me with exclusive devotion, ananya, means without devoting ourselves to anything or anyone, only to Krishna. Meditating on my transcendental form, to them I carry what they lack and I preserve what they have. And so then Krishna again gives contrast with those who worship demigods, because this is very typical in this material world, right? People always worship someone who is more powerful, and they have tendency to surrender to someone like boss or whoever, some powerful personality in this world, because it's easier to believe that, okay, this personality can look after me than Krishna. And so, yeah, this very widespread. But very few rare souls, they realize that Krishna is my Lord and Master, and there is no one else whom I should really surrender to. It's like Prabhupada was telling the story about one man who was a Vaishnava, and he worked at some factory. He was Muslim, and he was wearing tilak, and other Vaishnavas were also wearing tilak at their workplace. Because Prabhupada explains that Vaishnava means you have to remind other people about Krishna. Those who know what is tilak, they will automatically think of Krishna. Those who don't know what is tilak, they will ask, and you will have opportunity to tell them about Krishna. So then they will know. So it's a very good preaching opportunity. But the Muslim boss was not very happy. And he gathered his Vaishnava workers and he said, from tomorrow onwards, you should not be wearing tilak at your workplace. And if you continue doing so, I'll have to fire you. And apparently this was like a small village and they had no other means of sustaining themselves or something like that. So, keeping the job was really important for them, even though it was kind of a simple job at the factory. And then one devotee, he was thinking, my real boss is Krishna, and I should not surrender to anyone at the expense of my service to Krishna. So if this man wants to fire me for bearing tilak, he can do so, but I will not compromise my standards. So whatever happened, let it happen. Whatever will happen, let it happen. And then next day he went to his workplace with tilak. And then he saw that not a single other devotee was wearing tilak. They all removed tilaks. And then the Muslim boss, he gathered them together and he said, look at this man. I told him clearly, I told everyone clearly that you should not be wearing tilak, otherwise you will be fired. But he disobeyed. All of you listened to me, but he didn't. So for good, I should fire him. But because I also believe in God, I respect his conviction and his determination. So I'll make him into exception. He will be allowed to wear tilak at the workplace. But all of you, if you put tilak on, I'll definitely fire you. So this is the story, which helps us to understand how exclusive devotion to Krishna and surrender to Krishna is respected by. And so after contrasting, after speaking about demigod worship again, or even ghosts and spirits, why people do that, why people worshiping everyone and everything, Krishna again comes back to the topic of worshiping him. And he says, if one offers me with love and devotion, leaf, flower, fruit, or water, I will accept it. Famous verse. And then he states a principle which Srila Prabhupada highlighted. He said, we should all act according to this principle. Yat karoshi yad ashnasi, yad johoshi dadasi yat, Yat tapasyasi kaunteya tat kurushu madarpanam. Whatever you do, whatever you eat, whatever you offer or give away, and whatever austerities you perform, do that, O son of Kunti, as an offering to me. And so, yes, we should be offering everything to Krishna, not just our food, but everything, including our lives, should be offering to him. And Krishna says, in this way, one will become free from the bondage of work and all auspicious and inauspicious results. And then he explains his position that he is never envious towards anyone, but he's good friend to those who serve him. So Krishna basically has two attitudes. You know, he's ready to help anyone, but because devotees kind of connect with Krishna, use this opportunity, he shows a lot of kindness towards his devotees. And then Krishna gives really confidential secret in two texts, 30 and 31. And that is so confidential that even sometimes devotees cannot really accept it so easily. So that is Apichet Suduracharo Bhajate Mam Ananya Bhak Sadureva Samantavya Samyak Vyavahitohi Sa. Even if one commits the most abominable action, if he is engaged in devotional service, he is to be considered saintly because he is properly situated in his determination. And it's really mind-blowing, right? Text, because how can we accept someone to be saint if one commits, as it is explained here, abominable action? Because sadhu is supposed to behave like a sadhu, and so if sadhu is not behaving like a sadhu, how can we accept him as a sadhu? But then Krishna qualifies this statement in the next verse. He says, he quickly becomes righteous and attains lasting peace. O son of Kunti, declare it boldly that my devotee never perishes. So basically Krishna explains here that these people who are sadhus, but they do not behave like sadhus, and probably all of us had experience with such people, and probably some of us might see such people in the mirror also. Krishna explains that whatever problematic behavior is in one's life, that's all temporary, but very quickly one will advance in Krishna consciousness because I'll look after my devotees. So he basically is telling us we don't have to worry about devotees' spiritual advancement. Krishna will help his devotees. Very well. And so then after this, he says, it doesn't matter what one's position is, even if someone belongs to a very degraded position, and he mentions three categories. Mamhi parta vyapashritya yepisyu papayoneha striyo vaishyastata shudras tepiyanti param gatim. He says, O son of Pritha, those who take shelter in me, though they be of lower birth, women, vaishyas, merchants, and shudras workers, can attain the supreme destination. So Krishna says, everyone is meant to take shelter of me, even as he mentions women, and then Vaishyas and Shudras, and we might think, wow, it's kind of pretty discriminatory, right? Discriminating against woman. But considering the fact that we are living in Kali Yuga, and as we know, Kalau Shudra Sambhava, everyone is in Kali Yuga by birth is a Shudra. So there is not much difference between women and men in that sense. Everyone is fallen, and therefore everyone is meant to take shelter of Krishna. And then Krishna says, how much more this is so of the righteous brahmanas, the devotees, and the saintly kings. Therefore, having come to this temporary miserable world, engage in loving service unto me. Brahmanas should be taking shelter of me in the first place. And then the very last verse of this is very confident, because it is repeated almost verbatim in the concluding chapter 18, and that is man mana bhava mad bhakto mam madhyaji mam namaskuru mam evaishyasi yuktoyam atmanam mat prayana. Just few last words will be different, but the essence is the same. Engage your mind always in thinking of me, become my devotee, offer obeisances to me and worship me, being completely absorbed in me. Surely you will come to me. And so we can understand that the process of bhakti is consisting of three, we can say, stages of spiritual development. First is theoretical understanding. This is what we're doing. And second is application of this knowledge in our lives. And third is the result we get from that. So in Sanskrit, it's called Sambandha Abhideya Prayojana. And this is the entire process of devotional service. And in this particular verse, the entire process of devotional service is explained in a nutshell. Because the first line, Manmana Bhava Mad Bhakto. Manmana means think of me, understand me, and become my devotee. So knowledge of Krishna leads to devotional service. So that is Sambandha. And what is practical application? Mamaskuru. Yaji means like yagya, right? In here, translation is not clearly indicating that, perhaps, because Prabhupada says, offer obeisances to me and worship me. But really the word yaji comes from yagya, yajna. So that it does not mean just ritual, as we've explained, but that means some practical service, some practical sacrifice we're doing for Krishna. And so, of course, spiritual practice and being engaged in missionary activities, we can say. So that's our understanding of Madhyaji Mam Namaskuru. Mam Namaskuru is our spiritual practice, and Madhyaji is missionary activities. And then Mam Evaishyasi. Definitely you will come to me. That's the result of this theory and practice, that which is prayojana. And so this is what ends chapter 9. But then chapter 10 starts with really amazing statement. Shri Bhagavan vacha bhuya eva mahabaho shinu me paramam vacha yatte ham priyamanaya vakshami hitakameya. The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, listen, Arjuna, mighty armed Arjuna, because you are my dear friend, for a benefit I shall speak to you further, giving knowledge. That is better than what I have already explained. So what kind of statement is that? That already most confidential knowledge is explained. what can be better than that? What can be higher than most confidential knowledge? But for Krishna, it's very logical, because he is not going to explain anything new, but he will be elaborating and going deeper into what he already explained in chapter 9. So expansion of chapter 9, because the short examples, if you remember, Krishna was talking about his opulences, mentioning his opulences. So in this chapter 10, he will be giving very specific examples, and very impressive examples. And the 3 stages of devotional development, Sambandha, Abhidheya, Yojana, will be elaborated in this chapter through 4 special verses from 10:8 to 10:11, which are called Chatur Shloki, that 4 seed verses of Bhagavad Gita. And so basically Krishna is explaining his extraordinary powers or specific powers. The word bhuti means power in Sanskrit, and vi means specific. So Krishna explains his specific powers, and he gives many amazing examples. For example, he says, of the mountains, I'm Himalayas. And so it's really amazing. If you think of Himalayas, every year, so many people go trying to summit, especially Everest. And I was thinking that Everest is called Everest because many people who try to summit it, they ever resting on its slopes, which is true. Hundreds of people literally died in the process of going up. And this is very expensive. I think it's costing, starting from 100,000 pounds. We can understand that not everyone can afford this kind of exercise, and it's real danger. But people ready to die, and they go all the way up to the peak of the mountain, and what do they find there? It's empty, it's really cold, and they can't even stay there for too long because they need to climb down, otherwise it will be too late. So the question is, why people risk their own lives for the sake of what they are doing it for? And it's mysterious, but actually we understand, because Himalayas are Krishna. So people are so attracted by Krishna that they're ready to pay any money and even ready to die for having experience with Krishna. And so then Krishna gives other examples. He says, for example, of the fishes, I'm shark. Why shark? Because shark is death personified. And we can just imagine some atheist and complete materialist enjoying his life on some tropical paradise island and swims in the ocean, but suddenly he's seeing that black fin sticking out of the water and going into his direction. And he knows too well what does it mean. And so what will be the first thing crossing his mind? Oh my God, right? And so we can understand that even atheists will recognize shark as manifestation of Krishna. So, and there are like so many amazing analogies Krishna is sharing in this chapter, which we won't have time to go through. But one really important for us is Yagyanam Japa Yagyasmi. He says, of all types of sacrifices, I am Japa Yagya. So we can see that, you know, it's like Kirtan is a lot of fun. We can listen to it forever. But Japa is not so easy, right? Because there is no concentration in Japa. No melody, no rhythm. You can also chant Japa, that helps. But it's one-on-one with Krishna. It's your conversation with God. This is what Japa is. And therefore it's the most important instruction given to us by our spiritual master. And of course, we have our Diksha Gurus, but Srila Prabhupada is our preeminent Shiksha Guru, and therefore all Diksha Gurus in ISKCON, they stress the same thing, not less than 16 rounds of japa every day. And Prabhupada says, of all the instructions of the spiritual master, this is the most important one. And next chapter is Vishwarup Darshan Yoga. Chapter 10 was explaining his opulences. Krishna was explaining his opulences, but here he will show his opulences. It's like if chapter 10 is audio, then chapter 11 is video presentation on Krishna consciousness. So Vishwarup means universal form, Darshan means vision, yoga, vision of universal form. And it's done by Arjuna's request. Krishna shows him universal form. And then at the end of the show, gala presentation, he shows him the result of the battlefield of Kurukshetra also, and so many soldiers are dying, and it's actually Krishna who is killing them, and Arjuna is asking, who are you, my dear Lord? And at that time, and I came here to kill everyone except you Pandavas. And then he tells Arjuna in text 33, Nimitta Matra Bhava Savya Sachin, you have to be instrument in my hands. And actually Arjuna was really impressed by this vision of the universal form. He started apologizing to Krishna for his familiarity because he said, I had no idea of your real greatness. But finally Krishna again shows him his personal form. Then Arjuna is puzzled. Then this chapter ends with a really important verse, because there are certain vital conditions for us to advance in Krishna consciousness. So if we want to surrender to Krishna, if we want to please Krishna, what does it mean? What do we have to do? What do we have to do to finally come to Krishna? And then Krishna reveals us the secrets in the last verse of chapter 11. Mat karma krin mat paramo, mat bhakta sangha varjita, nirvaira sarbatishu, yes, samameti pandava. He says, my dear Arjuna, he who engages in my pure devotional service, free from the contaminations of fruitive activities and mental speculation, he who works for me, who makes me the supreme goal of his life, and who is friendly to every living being, he certainly comes to me. So, and Prabhupada elaborates on these 5 elements because he says in the purport that this verse is the essence of the entire Bhagavad Gita. You remember 330 was the purpose of Bhagavad Gita, and this verse 1155 is the essence of Bhagavad Gita because it gives all necessary ingredients. And first one is mat karma krim. Act for my pleasure, not for yourself or for anyone else. Only serve me. Second one, mat paramo, consider me to be topmost goal. And so it's not unnecessarily repeating the same thing because many times people start serving Krishna only, but then they can get a lot of side benefits, side kicks from this service. And they forget Krishna. We have seen that happening in society also. And then third one is Mat Bhakta. Mat Bhakta means become my devotee. What does it mean will be elaborated in the next chapter 12 because there are many, many verses there, quite a few, I suppose 8 or 9 verses, which end with Mat Bhakta. Krishna will explain what does it mean to be his devotee. And next one is Sangha Varjita, avoiding bad influence, and Srila Prabhupada specifically refers to karma and jnana in translation and purport also because karma is desire to enjoy independently of Krishna and jnana is desire to control. So these 2 desires are keeping us in this world, desire to enjoy and desire to control. And last but not the least is nirvaira sarvabhutishu. One should have no enemies. How can you have no enemies on the battlefield? But yeah, if you do it for Krishna, you understand everyone benefits from that. So Arjuna was blessing everyone with his arrows, and Krishna was blessing everyone with his gaze, and therefore everyone was going to back home, back to Krishna. And so this is the end of chapter 11, and next chapter 12, Bhakti Yoga, is one of the shortest chapters of Bhagavad Gita. It's only 20 texts. And basically, it explains how personal service is compared to impersonal meditation, and then it explains the stages of bhakti from the topmost stage, which is full focus on Krishna with love, and then going down to regulated practices, to working for Krishna, to renouncing the fruits of the work, and then developing knowledge. That's like the bottom line. And after this, Krishna will speak about the qualities of the devotees. So devotee can be recognized by certain specific qualities, and that's the most important thing. One time Prabhupada said that these qualities are so important that all devotees need to learn them by heart. He was not specifically referring to this list, but Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu gave very similar list in Chaitanya Charitamrita 26 qualities of devotees, but there are a lot of similarities. So we'll read this list. It starts from text 13 and goes all the way to text 19. And you probably remember we were mentioning that this is elaboration on what does it mean to be Mad Bhakta, my devotee. And so many of these verses, they finish with the words Yamad Bhakta Same Priya, or Yamad Bhakta Same Priya again, and Bhaktiman Yasame Priya, Bhaktiman Me Priyo Naraha, Bhakta Stativa Me Priya. So it's basically the same thing. So what are the qualities? First, Adveshta Sarabhatanam, one who is not envious. Maitra, but who is a kind friend to all living entities. And Karuna, compassionate. And Nirmama, one who is free from false ego. Nirahankara, no, Mama, one who doesn't claim anything for himself, and Nirahankara means one who is free from false ego. Samadukha Sukakshami, one who is peaceful in both distress and happiness. Santushta, always tolerant, always satisfied, engaged in devotional service with determination. His mind and intelligence fixed on me. Such a devotee of mine is very dear to me. And then Krishna continues, he for whom no one is put into difficulty and who is not disturbed by anyone, who is equipoised in happiness and distress, fear and anxiety, is very dear to me. My devotee who is not dependent on the ordinary course of activities, who is pure expert without cares, free from all pains and not striving for some result, is very dear to me. One who is neither rejoices nor grieves, who neither laments nor desires, and who renounces both auspicious and inauspicious things, such a devotee is very dear to me. One who is equal to friends and enemies, who is equipoised in honor and dishonor, heat and cold, happiness and distress, fame and infamy, who is always free from contaminating association, always silent and satisfied with anything, who doesn't care for any residence, who is fixed in knowledge, and who is engaged in devotional service, such a person is very dear to me. And Krishna concludes, those who follow the imperishable path of devotional service and who completely engage themselves with faith, making me the supreme goal, are very, very dear to me. So we can see that this list has very strong logic to it. Because first three qualities are Adveshta Sarvabhutanam Maitra Karuna Vacha. That first one is to envy no one, having no enemies, and then be friend to everyone and be compassionate to everyone. So we should not be envious of our superiors. We should not be competing with our peers, and we should be compassionate or make friends with our peer, and we should be compassionate to those who are less fortunate than us. And so the first three qualities are establishing the importance of very harmonious relationships with others. So without this, no one can be a devotee. And so only such people can really advance in Krishna consciousness. And so we will conclude on this point, and we went through 7 most important chapters of Bhagavad Gita briefly, Bhakti Yoga part. And if we have any questions, comments, yeah, we put Srila Prabhupada's picture because he is the best example of a devotee described in this chapter. One who is kind friend to everyone and never envious of anyone, etc., and never claiming any proprietorship. So let's see if we have any questions, comments, maybe complaints. or suggestions, you're welcome to share them. Everyone is pretty happy just with listening.
Haribol Maharaj, very nice class. We enjoyed the whole family. Thank you so
Hare
much.
Krishna. Thank you. All right. So if everything is clear, then we can finish for tonight, and then we'll continue with last 6 chapters tomorrow, right?
Yes, Maharaj, tomorrow.
Okay. All right. So have a good night and have sweet dreams of, and we'll see you again tomorrow.
Thank you, Maharaj. See you tomorrow.
Srimad Bhagavad Gita ki jai.
Jai.
Prabhupada ki jai. Jai Gaur Premanande.
Hari Bol.
Thank you, Maharaj.
Thank you.
Thank you.
ये भागवत में